Hello, everyone, and welcome to our return to We Have a Caves Troll. We took a few months off post expansion
Months,
pack. Well, I
several
think the
of them.
last time we did this was September. So
Yeah, that was a long time ago. A long time ago. It was kind of a beatdown at the end of last year to get things out the door.
we
Not
did
gonna
it though.
lie, it was kind of rough.
We did it though,
We
which
did,
to
we
our
did.
to our credit, against all odds.
Yes, we
I
did
feel
get it done.
I feel like our build system was the greatest villain uh, of the last like few months of development for Kingdoms of Harad.
You think that was the big thing? That's been a big thing for a while. I mean, it's one of those issues with having a game that's as old and as large as ours, right? Is that everything just takes longer and longer and longer to build.
Yep.
So as a
I
result,
do.
we're running into more and more trouble.
Well, and even just like watching the bull roarer cycle, and when our QA team like props up a bull roarer and how late it is in the day sometimes is just a byproduct of like
Oh
how
yeah,
long it takes builds to happen and how like we also while we're building for bull roarer we also still have to build development
yeah.
branches
For
and
development, for live, whatever we're actually working on, right? So it is. It's pretty cumbersome now when you think about like our builds are taking as long as they are, meaning more than we really want to admit ever.
well, and I think some of that too is also a byproduct of a lot of our builds happening in a remote way compared to them
Yeah,
being as on site as they used to be. Where it's like when we used to be able to like literally go into the room and kick the build server to
yeah,
make it do
yeah,
its
yeah.
thing.
So
And now
true.
it's just like I cannot easily get to X location because it is not local.
Oh, and something changed with the script, so all of a sudden this particular thing doesn't work the same way anymore, and now we have to get an engineer involved in that to make sure that everything is firing correctly. Oh, it's such a pain.
Well,
That's not what we're here to talk though. We're not here to
no,
grouse. We could. I
we're
mean, we
kind
could
of
definitely grouse if we
retrospectiving.
wanted. Yeah, yeah, a little retrospective. And they've already figured out that your background is Rivendell housing.
Well, it might be. It could be. We're not looking at any more of it than just this right now. But
No, not right now.
where the view of it is pertinent to what we are here to talk about today.
It kind of is, isn't it? Yeah.
Where
Yeah, I
I've
mean, we
positioned this camera, and it's something that every housing neighborhood has one of them. The amount of utilization that that housing neighborhood has of that particular place in it, I think varies considerably. And I think we could argue there's really only one of that kind of place in the entire game that is super heavily used. Should we just tell
what,
them
what, are
what
you,
we're talking about?
what are you getting at? What are you getting at, Matt? I mean, are we? I thought we were talking about social hubs
That
and the social experience inside of the game
that is
and
very
and
true.
how. Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, people know that last year we started working on kinships and at least getting a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
back end stuff done for kinships. And we dropped the kinship calendar out there,
And I
and
dropped that bomb earlier than it was supposed to have
that
been
was
dropped.
intended. Yeah, accidents happen, right? We sometimes speak a little too quickly because our brains get ahead of our tongues, or the other way around. I don't remember how that works, but
Heat in
yeah, I mean,
mouth.
I think it's fair. I think it's fair for you to let slip a little bit what one of the
Well,
focus points of this year is. I mean,
unfortunately,
granted,
that
like
was not my thing to let slip, but
whatever. They're all part of the same team. So, I mean, the first thing that we should say is that although it's not out yet, the letter to the players is done, and it should be out hopefully by the end of the week, so that at least the first 6 months are kind of, or the first couple of quarters of the year are outlined, and you're all going to get some details on what's upcoming in the very near future. Outside of the release that we're obviously still working towards to get the instances out the door and then eventually raid. But yeah, I mean, sure, we can talk about it. We've had our initial meetings.
yep.
We know what the scope is, right? We've started to identify the work, and the engineer that's working with us is already identifying some of the things that need to be fixed and how difficult they're going to be. And I mean, I think that it's pretty damn cool.
Well, I think that specific stuff around the kinship stuff is something that like you have your hands in, something I have my hands in, something that one of our engineers has their hands in, and we're all very kind of giddy about it.
I mean, I think I know we're still kind of dancing around the issue, but I think what is nice is that the past couple of years have afforded us. Uh, I should say last year. The efforts last year. That's a good way to put it. The efforts last year and the very fact that we were able to start tackling some of the more difficult of our performance issues and addressing some of them. We know that they're not all solved, but they're in a much more manageable space at this point. Like things are trending in the right direction, and we're starting to
Hmm.
really get a lot of the traction that we have needed to get on tackling a lot of that over the past several years, with the addition of the engineer we brought back. And it's been a very positive time, I think, for us as a team, right? Like,
Hmm.
I know, and I hope the players are. I hope you are all feeling the same way, but we feel fantastic right now. Like it's been a while since we've felt like we turned that corner, and we can start really looking at earnestly starting to make some more adjustments and improvements to the game that are going to really be for the benefit of everybody. I mean, some of the things are already out there on the Bull Roar server, right? The fact that you can look at the first stages of the 4K update. I
Yeah.
shouldn't say the 4K update, but the 4K support, right? And the way we're planning on supporting that in the future. And I know there's still more work to be done, and this is going to have to be done in stages because it's not something we can just tackle all at once. But that's an
We got a
aspect
lot
of
of
things,
UI in this game.
and there's a ton of UI in the game, obviously.
And
And
some that you don't even expect to exist, and then all of a sudden we get a bug like this one obscure UI that only appears in this
right,
one
that is
instance.
only here, right? It's crazy, and then you start looking at the things that we've wanted to do for a long time, and some of the some of the objectives we have as you and I, right? Like we haven't been shy about admitting that we are both invested in the housing system in
Hmm.
some capacity, and that we would love to expand it and make it grow. And uh, we both we both understand the successes and failures of Hitbold, and things like that. And there are things that we think we can do to improve the overall housing system, and there are things that we feel kind of dovetail nicely in with kinship in that regard. So,
Well, and I think some of
do
the
what
stuff where
do you want to read the tea leaves or should I? Who's spilling it?
well, I think there are certainly you're welcome to spill, but I did just want to say like there are some things that throughout the years we all come up with ideas, and sometimes ideas get pulled into certain expansion packs or certain updates, and then other times those ideas are considered for those things, and it's the hard thing to think about as the person coming up with those ideas to be like, this isn't the right time. We don't have the resources for it. We can't do it the way that it should be done. And it's always nice to like be able to let those ideas sit, mature, have other eyes on them, and
Hmm.
then have that idea become a better realized version of itself.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that design is a process, right? It's not as much as I wish it was just I come up with the idea, I write the spec, and we just implement it. That's not the way it works, and it's not the way it should work. Often those ideas appear really good on paper, and they start off pretty solid, and then you start to work into them, and you realize that oh, there's some issues that we have here that we didn't really think about when we were putting this together. So we have to go back and rework them and hammer out the details. And I think we've been around long enough. We know that the best way to design is to come up with that initial design, open it up to a smaller group, open it up to a larger group after you've forged it a little bit more, and then as you really drive into it and start uh, getting the more fine details out there, really let a bunch of eyes
Mm.
and hands in there to pressure test it and make sure that what you're trying to do is going to make sense. And I think that we've really taken an approach in the past few years of this incremental development that is likely. I'm going to sneeze. Give me a second. No, I'm going to fight it. That's likely been a little frustrating to players, right? Because it hasn't been all at once that we've been able to put something out that's been major. And a lot of folks probably are sitting here saying, "Major? You haven't really done anything major in a long period of time." Um, the methodology that we're using is the incremental approach, and some of these things are giving us more and more building blocks, more and more Legos that we can start playing with, right? So, I think we're at the point now where we've got we've got the notion of what we want to do and where we want to take things. And the next incremental approach is something that I think a good number of players have asked for a long time. And like you were saying, there's only one that exists in each neighborhood right now,
Mm-hmm.
and players really can only have one at a time. So, what's the next logical step? Letting them have more than one, right? Letting them,
One.
uh,
Who doesn't want
potentially.
more than one of something?
Right. And so is there a way that we can open that up? Is there a way that we can kind of uh, address some of the quality of life issues that exist inside of neighborhoods and exist inside of the overall housing system and fix some of those things? Can we, talking about UI, make some adjustments to UI and look at where we're going for the future? So yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say that one of our main objectives this year is to continue the kinship work and find a way to let folks expand upon what they can own as a kinship and where they can own
Yes.
as a kinship.
And how they can gather in those
Yeah,
spaces with their kinship.
and leave from those spaces and make their way around those spaces, right? Like
And
so,
invite other people into those spaces.
and have an easier way to do so with a much cleaner UI. So yeah, that clearly is one of our big objectives this year, right? Is to look at the existing housing system and more specifically the way that the kinships work and that social aspect, the social construct that exists inside of the game, and expand upon that, allowing players to have one kinship house one somewhere and then allow them to build towards getting a second kinship home somewhere else, and then potentially expand beyond that if we can, right? But it's going to be incremental and it's going to be a step by step approach, and we have to be smart about the way that we do it.
And we want to provide players the tools to, like you said, build upon their kinships, grow their kinships in ways in places that they want to establish their roots basically. And I think
Yeah.
that original system hindered that somewhat significantly. We
Oh,
tried
yeah.
to help that a little bit with Rohan housing and some of the travel features that were introduced into that, but unfortunately there was just not the time or resources to really do it the way it should have been done. So
There's never enough time and resources, though, Matt.
no,
We know
there
that.
never is.
Never. There's always more that we want to do.
So that kind
And
of like brings us back to the purpose of this is like, what is a social hub? What makes
yeah, what
something a
makes a
place
social
where
hub?
people want to gather and be where their journeys for the day start with their friends and kinship members and fellowships and whatnot. And you know, where I'm hanging out right now is a spot that hopefully people will be doing that very soon.
You mean this Rivendell area?
Yeah, I
Or do
happen
you
to
mean
be
your
in.
office at home? Because I mean, it'd be
Oh,
kind of weird if people suddenly started to gather at your office and home,
oh,
right?
there's already going to be a party here this weekend, and I'm dreading
Oh, fantastic.
it.
No, I mean, I, it's odd, right? Every time we come up with a new expansion, every time that we do something new inside of the game, and we start to sit down and talk about the social hubs and what we're planning on doing, there's always, at least for me, there's always a piece of me that says, Yeah, but how many people are really going to use this? They're just
Right.
going to go back to Brie. They're just going to go
It's
back to
it's
Brie.
it's that constantly escalating arms race, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like Breetown is, and I think it's good for the game for Breetown to be as busy as it is.
So many people
But
pass through it. Yeah.
yeah, it and it's a great opportunity for lower level players to observe higher level players. It's a great place for emergent social interactions where it's just like you're running through town and there's a band of people playing music by the
Mm.
boar fountain, and so you get these like flyby interactions that may not feel like they mean anything, but they do mean a lot into that feeling of a living world, a connected world, a world that is populated by other people. Um, and I think we run in, like I said, this is ever escalating arms race where like Breetown is the town of Lotro.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is
It
it
is.
is no matter what we do, no matter where we go, everyone's always going to be coming back to Breetown. And I think for a long time, at least on the world design side, we kept trying to out Breetown, to try to like convince people to stay in a certain spot after they've done the content in there. And so it's like I think the first one after Breetown, the first major place was the 21st Hall. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
21st Hall still gets like a good amount of usage, but it's no Breetown. Then the what was the place in Dunland? Um, oh,
You type you
I'm forgetting the
which one?
name of
The
it.
arid.
Galtrev, yes. Thank
Oh,
you.
Galtra. Yeah.
Where like that was, I think, known specifically and primarily as a crafting hub because of how easy it was to get to the craft facilities from your milestone or your travel point.
Yeah.
But outside of that, there was no other real reason to be in there. And then like as we keep building out hubs, we keep trying to hope that like, oh well, Minas Tirith is the like why everyone should be in Minas Tirith, but it has its own issues. And there
Well,
are still
oh
things
yeah,
that
Minas Tirith is its own set of issues, isn't it?
and there are still things that are like useful in that town. I know like we have a theater group that puts on performances in the Blue Theater, which is great. And I think that ended up being kind of where, at least from world design, we started landing on for hubs, where it's like instead of trying to make a hub that can compete with Breetown or can compete with Galtrev, we try to find things in those towns that can act as interesting anchors that
Hmm.
can be used by the players for events and whatnot, as opposed to trying to just encourage them to live in that location.
I also think that that as we've moved further away uh, from Eriador proper, and gotten toward Umbar, I think is a good example. I think that a lot of people actually did probably shift their main operation or main operational area for a period of time to Umbar, but more specifically, and this is more of like just the structure of the game changing, right? To the mission hubs,
Mm-hmm.
where those places where the missions launch from become uh, a more frequented area, though they're not exactly social. Because the one thing that I can say
Yeah,
is that when I am in those spaces, there's not many of us that are talking to one another. We're all just talking to the NPCs, trying to get through our daily missions to hit the necessary quota for the day.
yeah,
So
and
it makes things a little bit different, you know.
that kind of dovetails into Hirok's question about why the mission hubs are so spread out and why there isn't just one for a given like region or territory. Bree for Eriador, Anak Kerfu for Ravanian, and I think
Mhm.
some of that is theming, right? Like a lot of the missions for a given mission hub are themed around the stories and the content that are happening in that area, and it might feel a little weird to be doing Lothlorien missions out of Anak Curfew, where like the elves and the dwarves are already kind of like and like so it just thematically wouldn't really feel good to have those kinds of things in that. And it's the same with the Umbar missions and the
Yeah,
Ikerbon and the Murjala missions, where it's like they're themed to that area. I also think too that our intention behind missions kind of changed a little bit over time. Like when missions were first introduced, they were kind of in common spaces. They were first
yeah.
introduced in, you have missions in Rivendell. You have with the further adventure stuff. You have all of the Swanfleet and Cardolan missions. You have um, the Wildwood missions. You have, um, and I think those were the original three. Then you have Anak Curfew, which is,
Hmm.
another set of missions. And originally we wanted to have that gameplay loop of you basically going hub to hub to hub to
From
hub.
place to place. Yeah.
Um, I think as we've grown the mission system, we want to encourage people to go to the primary locations for those, and that gets tricky when those are on landscape, and we have legendary servers to consider as
Yes.
well,
I think
where
that's probably
like
the biggest part of that, right? Is that if the legendary servers are not not advancing to that point, it's going to be more and more difficult to keep those particular places uh, off of the general landscape, and that does kind of necessitate us putting them in places where we could easily block them off, because a lot of the times our landscape won't necessarily allow us to hide those things in the same way as closing a door would, for example.
mhm. And I think too there is value in having still providing access to mission hubs for when you're level appropriate through the travel system and whatnot, which is what we did
Yeah.
with Kingdoms of Arad. Those mission hubs, you can access all of them using the travel systems in that area, in those areas. Um, and we already had such a bevy of missions available for the level 20 to what like 150 range that
150s.
everyone
Yeah.
could access.
Yeah.
So having newer mission hubs not be as easily accessible for those lower level characters. While like I'm sure a lot of people would like that, it simplified things a lot on our end, and it also helps those individual locations have a little bit more life as a social hub
Yeah.
for the duration of their use.
So if you were to pick the hub in Harad that was supposed to end up being the real social hub, where would you say it was kind of meant to be?
It was Zajana for me, no doubt.
Yeah, it was Zajana for me too. Yeah, I mean, I think somebody mentioned the fact that Lions worked into the main story. The
Yeah.
stage was specifically called out in Zajana, and that was always his intention with the traveling company there. Not going to
Well,
do any more spoilers, but it was like one of those things where it was called out early that we wanted to have a stage in this area of the world, specifically in Zajana, to show that the level of culture was still, while you're outside of Area Door, the rest of the world wasn't necessarily all about, just going out and stealing the North. Like there was
mhm.
still other culture elsewhere in the world.
We have a theater in Erebor as well that
Yep.
I don't think gets much use, and some of that is like a design issue too, where I think that theater ended up. I built it like it was a like big rock star band amphitheater, and the problem with that is most of it can't be used because if you're too far away from the stage, you can't see you can't see any overhead text, you can't hear any of the music because you're just too far away. Um, I think Sajana too was very much us responding to some of the criticisms from Umba Baharbel in terms of
Hmm.
density, population, and it is still a big city, but it is much more stripped down. I think the part of the concept too is like Umbar, like the streets are full of people, full of
Yeah,
NPCs and other characters interacting, and Zijana is, while still lively, a lot of the citizenry is hiding inside because of the oppositional presences
yeah,
in those
yeah.
spaces.
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed this before. Like the storytelling aspect of world building is every bit as the storytelling aspect of the written word that we have inside of the games too. And it may not always come across like that, but that is definitely part of like
Mm.
the Zijana story and like the whole Zijana layout is that yeah, there's people there. It's just that they're still dealing with kind of being an unoccupied place. That's why there's a whole section of it that's kind of built out that way, right? So yeah, I mean, I think that yeah, that Zijana was supposed to be more the social hub. I don't necessarily know that it's going to fulfill that role because I don't know how how many people will use that as a staging ground, right? For anything that comes about, even with the instances coming out, I don't necessarily think that's going to be um, that popular overall. Like Harak just said, it really does come down to where's your milestone, how far is that, and how far is the stable master, and what does the stable master lead you to, which
But
is
we
a
also have,
whole other can of worms that we could open
yeah,
and discuss as to how we construct the hubs and whatnot.
which
And I'm sure
that's a
you've done
tough
that before in
balance.
your stream.
It's a tough balance because you
Yeah.
do want that accessibility, but you also need to be like, oh no, this is too close to this, and that's bad because performance. um,
Oh yeah.
like,
Performance has always been an issue.
hey, we part of the reason why there are dead zones in Breetown is specifically because of that.
Yeah.
Because if we had filled out Breetown completely, if we had made it completely accessible everywhere, at least with our performance metrics at the start of the game, as they were when we launched the game, Breetown would have been awful.
I mean, considering you were able to run Lotro on a potato, right? That was
Yeah.
our min spec. Our min spec is plug a couple of electrodes into a potato, connect to the internet. There you go. You're running.
If there was any hub that is near and dear to your heart that you wish was more frequented, what would it be?
Wow.
I've got mine.
You're gonna laugh at me, but I think it's Mickle Delving.
Mm.
I mean, like it's and maybe it'd be more. No, I think it's Mickle Delving. I mean, we drive people to Hobbiton a lot because you go to the party tree so often
Yep.
for festivals and events. But Mickle Delving or Tuckborough really should be the two places in the Shire that are most frequented. They should be the biggest areas, and I feel like a lot of people just hit Mickle Delving, deliver a lot of deliver a lot of post and some pies, and then never go back.
I think Mickle Delving, one of the I think the Matham house could have been a much bigger anchor for Mickle Delving than we ended up having it be, where it's really just for rep items
Yeah,
at this point. And I think one of the challenges of Mickle Delving too is it has those monuments in the center of the town that if you weren't,
which are a little game breaking. Yeah, they're a little story breaking.
but also like if you weren't there for when they were happening, you don't
They
have
have no meaning.
context for them and you don't have the
Yeah,
meaning behind them. And
yeah.
so when you running by them without that context, without that meaning, you're just kind of like, well, this is taking up space. Like, why is the craft hub all the way up here
Yeah,
when
yeah, that's
it could
true.
be like that sort of thing? Not to devalue those monuments and the meanings behind them, but like that from as someone who was on a break from Lotro at the time that all happened, I ran through there and I was like, I don't understand what this is. These are things I can click on, but I can't actually do anything with them. Um, so yeah, I think for
Now I'm getting
me,
chat. Now I'm getting chastised in the chat that we use it on Meriadoc and on Peregrine. I spend most of my time on Glamdring. I apologize.
Yeah. So I don't think either of us are much a part of the RP communities on the servers we
No,
play on.
no time.
Um, I think for me, and this is just it's because it's a town that I was just really proud of making. Londkirion. I put a lot of work and thought into trying to build it in a way that I thought a like cliffside harbor town might look, and added a lot of like cool little interiors here and there throughout, because that's one of the things that whenever we introduce a town, we always get like poked at a bit about like, why aren't there more interiors, why aren't there more interiors, why can't I go into all of the buildings, which the reality is like going into having an interior for every building is just not feasible. And also, as a homeowner myself, I don't want people randomly walking into my house.
That'd be odd. Yeah, I'm glad nobody just does that. Although it has happened to me once where somebody just walked into my house and I was like, "You don't live here?" But yes,
So,
that would be awkward.
but yeah, so like Lon Curian out in Onfalos. If you're ever
Yep.
looking for just like a place to vacation, maybe take your hobbits there.
I mean, it is actually a strange place to navigate. I'll say that. Longcarrion is the one where you can jump off the bridge and die, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Originally, um, I wanted to build it like, is it the Ponte Vecchio? Is that what it is in
Yeah, I think
Italy?
so. Yeah.
Where it's
Yeah.
that bridge that has all of like the shops and buildings built
Oh
onto the
yeah, built
bridge,
into it. Yeah.
and that's what I originally wanted it to be like. And then I started playing around with it, and then I'm like, this is going to take me too many entities to do. Back to the drawing board.
Yep. Damn constraints of our engine.
And time doesn't help
Well,
either.
no, time is always going to be a constraint for us. So, are there any questions going on in the chat or no?
It's mostly people happily chatting on about all the cool places that they do social
Yeah,
events
where
at.
they RP and hold concerts and parties and yeah.
So like I think, you know, we talked about this a little bit as we were building Kingdoms of Harad, and the amount of effort that goes into building cities, building towns. We we're kind of happy. The world design team, anyways, is kind of happy that we're kind of done with big cities for a little bit. Where we're going next is not going to have something the size of Umbar, Baharbel, or even a Zajana. Like, and
Not
that's
even
a
close.
that's going to be a nice break for us. Probably more the size of the villages and whatnot that you can find on the Shield Isles, which
Yeah,
I think,
if even that big.
which like those
There might be a little smaller.
those are just like fun little hubs to build because they're smaller and they give you enough time to like add in those little details. When you're building a big city, it's actually really hard to find the time in your schedule to add in that detailing. Like for Kingdoms of Harad, we treated it like it was a full region in terms of our scheduling and planning and implementation, because it's a big city that needs detail, needs deco, needs all of that stuff.
Hmm.
Corsairs of Umbar, the
Whew.
person who built Umbar Baharbel, that was the only thing he built
That's the
for
only
that
thing that they
expansion
did. Yeah,
pack.
yeah.
Um,
Because
Iceman and I
that was
did
a
everything
massive effort.
else.
Yeah, that was a massive effort. I mean, obviously. I mean, I feel like where we're going next, the biggest settlement will probably be about the size of a Hava from a more recent
Yeah,
build, right? It's something that is not maybe not as spread out as a Hava, but
yeah, a
about
few
that
land blocks
size.
at most.
Yeah, yeah.
Here,
Maybe the Don's Warden uh, area too, but it'll definitely be a little smaller. Right? Well, now people will speculate about where we are potentially going that we've mentioned this, right? So that's good. That's always good.
well, we've got another stop before we get to the areas that
We
you're
do.
hoping to
We do.
talking about.
That's gonna be a surprise when it comes out with the letter to the players. So that's good.
Um, Raviolin asks, what is an ideal vision for you to see player activity in a hub? What would you, the designers, want to see it used for?
I think it depends on what the overall hub is meant to be
Yeah.
used for. Like each one has its own unique set of activities that we kind of expect from them. So if we look at like let's just take Longaran uh, for an example. Longaran is kind of that first settlement you go to outside of Swanfleet, right? So it's the first place you
Mm-hmm.
get to after going somewhere. So we have to satisfy the crafting area. We have to satisfy. It has to be kind of a centralized hub and access point for uh, the 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 spokes that are taking you out to the further points inside of the Cardolan uh, area itself. It's satisfying, the quest aspect. It's doing a lot of the heavy lifting of a starter area without it being a full on Bree town. I actually think that Langaran is very close, kind of in not necessarily layout, but kind of the way that it's structured into almost like a Kalandim, where you've got
Mm-hmm.
the tiered system of where the actual uh, crafting area is kind of located, and each of the little breakpoints for where the quests are available in hubs. So yeah, it's like I think Langaran is that's pretty good. Like, so that's like a
If
starter hub, right? Kalandim is
if
another place for a starter hub.
if there's one thing I would have changed about that flow for the Before the Shadows starter experience is I might have tried to pull crafting into Mossward
Mm-hmm.
first, or at least
Mossword.
pull the resource gathering component of the crafting system into
Yes.
that
Yeah.
first hub, so that you're
Yeah.
in because the area surrounding it has all of the resource nodes that you would expect to find. It's just you can't
Yep.
do anything with them until you're vectored there for hubs afterwards. Because usually, like I feel like the expected player flow for that area was you do Mossword, you do all the Hobbit hubs, then is when you go to
Langaran.
yeah, and that's when you start getting your crafting quests and whatnot. And
I
so
mean, we
like
can always go back and revise it a little bit.
it's like
Okay.
by the time you get the vector there, you're already also being pulled off in so many directions. Um, but yeah, I think like you said, it's important for a hub to have a reason and a purpose, and that doesn't necessarily have to be um, as a social space. Most of our hubs are primarily for questing. That is where you go to pick
Yeah.
up your quests, and then you leave, and then you come back, and then you have no more quests, and then you leave again. And I think missions are an attempt to keep people coming back to those spaces again and again.
Yeah.
Um,
I was gonna say Trestle Bridge. Trestle Bridge. The fact that we put missions in Trestle Bridge ages ago now, right, is kind of antithetical to what Trestle Bridge was supposed to be. You
right.
weren't supposed to want to go back to Trestle Bridge. You were supposed to realize that, oh, this is a place that has really been lost. And like your whole reason for being in a Trestle Bridge was to get out of there so you could start cleaning up the remainder of the North Downs. So Trestle Bridge could start to rebuild. Or like if you go to the Forsaken Inn in the Lone Lands, like the purpose of that hub was to provide you with a whole bunch of quests and to kind of convey, hey, this is like the last waypoint you're gonna see for a while, and the people here are not exactly happy uh, or really pleased to be in the situation that they're in. And then you've got like candidates hub, which is a hub, right? It's not a big hub, but it's a
For
hub.
all of his 3 quests that it gives you.
His three quests, but that is a hub where it's supposed to convey like this is a dude who's out here living a very rustic life, and he's got a really clear goal as to what he's doing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I think
Well,
I think every hub has its own purpose, and it's not always to be a social center. Sometimes it's really just there to be to be something that is part of the story point along the way, or a waypoint from one area to another. There's things I would love to do, Matt. Like Adso's been building his encampment for almost 20
I
years, right?
I wanted Adso so badly to come down to help rebuild Gondor. That was one of my pitches when we
Oh,
did King's Gondor was that Adso gave up working on his farm and made his heard about the war and the rebuilding efforts and made his way all the way down to
down the
Harland
Greenway, all
to
the
the
way
Harland
down to
to help
Gondor.
to help out with the rebuilding rebuilding there. And Adso and Thornley, I would have loved to have that and be like, no, that's too goofy for this. But hey, we,
So
we
true.
made at least
But it's funny.
Spider-Bane a major component of an expansion pack at one point. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when you. I mean, part of it is that we are locked in this 13-month timeline, right? Or 16-month timeline now that we're in. That we're unlikely to advance much further over time, like because
yeah.
we have very distinct plans for where we want to go and how we want to advance that timeline and push things along.
Well,
But it is kind of funny when you think about like Adso has been working on his little tavern and waypoint for almost 20 years now. He's
and that's
that
where
poor
phasing
hobbit.
comes in and is helpful because that's one of the things that you had mentioned Trestle Bridge and how it's kind of weird that you're not supposed to want to go back to Trestle Bridge because it's been by the time you play through it at the level that you're supposed to play through it,
Yeah.
it's under siege by orcs. It's been set on fire. Everyone is like fleeing from it, is fleeing to Breetown because of it, and you're just there to to prop it up just enough so you can get across the bridge and go fight the enemy that's coming across it.
Yep.
And then when we did the missions were kind of a representation of, okay, you're coming back to it now as a more seasoned adventurer with more means, and you're
Mm.
able to, through doing missions and quests out of Trestlebridge into the Wildwood, you're getting the resources you need to help repair the damage that was done to Trestlebridge 30 levels prior to when you first went through it. And I really like, that's something every so often someone will say like, when is Archit going to get actually rebuilt? And
Right. Right.
Archit is its own unique little thing because nobody wants to touch Archit because of the number of layers going on in it anyways. But it's that sort of
Archit.
thing where it's
Archit.
like
Yeah. Archit
it
is that
Trestlebridge scratches
God.
that like rebuild Archit itch without actually being Archit.
Yeah. All
And
right, for
Trestlebridge and the high repeatability of the missions out of Trestlebridge into the Wildwood dovetails into the purpose and goal of the Wildwood as a like grindy old school MMO progression zone, basically.
yeah, and for the players who don't understand what we're saying there, when you open up Archit inside of our world building tool, even the most seasoned designer and long in the tooth designer will have a shiver run down their spine as though someone has walked over their grave 5 or 6 times immediately after opening the area.
Well,
I remember when MVP accidentally opened Archit and was, oh God, I hope I didn't break anything. I went there and I regret opening it and seeing what it is. What is going on there? And then I think it was Made of Lions. It was just like, yeah, we don't talk about Archit. It's like Bruno.
well, Archit is an example of what was supposed to be super super awesome about Lotro from the player experience of it, but super super headache from the developer experience of it.
Oof.
Because the selling of the world change was like the one of the marketing hooks behind the
Yeah.
launch of the game. Like you can see the world around you change by doing instances and but that each change has its own stack
Oh,
that's on
cost
top of
stack
everything.
effect. Oh yeah, it's brutal.
And it is one
It's
of the
brutal.
reasons why we opted to, instead of doing that in places like Helm's Deep and Minas Tirith, why they are just copies to help
Yeah.
simplify implementation. It that causes other issues, mainly in like bug fixing, because you fix a bug in one spot, now you have to actually go to every single location that we have a copy of those spaces and fix that bug there too. But the headache and sorrow that comes from
Yeah.
working in a space like Archit, or comes from working in, Thorin's Hall or Thorin's Gate, is one of the reasons why like we do some limited world change now, but
Yeah.
we do not do it to the extent that we were originally intending to do with the launch of the game.
Yeah. It was just too much. Too much. Dude, I wonder. I mean, I'm seeing a couple of questions, but
Yeah,
not a lot of them. So maybe we can get to a couple of these.
dig into them. I've seen a couple of questions about asking why, hubs in general aren't more accessible. And, I think some of that, particularly with the travel system being uh, we'll say classic MMO travel system, um, the systems and UI and tools around building it make it kind of difficult to make it a easy system where you just pop open a stable master and go wherever you want. Um, so yeah, I think there's part of that. I think some of it too is like we still hold a little bit onto the travel system as being a world exploration tool, in addition to being a convenience tool, and so sometimes those intentions fight each other.
They're at odds. They're at odds. There's some friction there with that. Yeah, that's entirely true. So there was a question about why there are no adventurers quartermasters in Umbar or the new region hubs. It was part of an effort to kind of consolidate and reduce the number of NPCs that were necessary for the different areas. We made a couple of mistakes uh, in the creation of the areas for not the areas some of the NPCs for the new expansion, and it's not as terribly egregious. It was just some little things where part of the setup pieces got done by multiple people at the same time, and we ended up with more than we really needed. But the overall reason is that we're trying to cut down on the number of NPCs and kind of unify a lot of the vendor tables. It's mostly because we don't really need as many vendor tables as we have, and we're trying to just get things to a little bit more of a controllable size and space.
We had something similar happen with class trainers too, which,
Yes.
um, like I think we had already placed them, and then we decided actually we don't really need class
I don't really
trainers
need them.
everywhere,
Yeah.
and so that
I,
leads us, like we actually I have on my like sheet of tasks is to have a conversation with Alan and his team about like,
yeah.
okay, so what are our town services now? What do we want to support for town services? Are there things that the class, are there vendors and whatnot and purposes that the class trainers filled that we can fill on other NPCs, other vendors, what way, stuff that we need to take into account to help make our social hubs feel like living spaces.
Yep. And sometimes there's just we miss it, right? Sometimes it's
Yeah.
just whoops, we forgot that, or that knowledge left the building, and it's like, oh yeah, we have to do that, and it just has to come in at a later time.
Or the person that was there like, this is my most passionate thing that I'm most passionate about isn't here anymore, and because they were the one that was on it all the time, like I am glad that we have other people now inside the building, virtual though
Hmm.
it may be, that are excited about housing, because for a
Yes.
long time that was just me. And if I got like sick and was out for a little bit and something needed to be fixed with housing, yeah.
Yep, that's true. That's true. There was a question about adding more town services to Wenda's VIP stuff. Probably not. Um, and the reason for it is our VIP uh, offerings are actually pretty robust as they are right now, and there are some updates that we're planning on looking at for VIP at some point in the near future. It's just we're not ready to really talk about any of those yet, and adding more of the town services would kind of pull you away from going to some of these hubs, and we don't necessarily want to do that.
And we
Not
generally
all of them, but
we generally when we do a region update and whatnot, we try to at least have one hub in each of those regions have Winda in it as a
Mhm.
draw to those hubs as well. So you don't have to go back to Bree or wherever to refresh access to those services. Um, there's another question, is there a plan for class trainers, which we touched on a little bit, and will they become more viable again to be placed in older hubs? And I think
I mean, I can.
I'm gonna swerve on that a little bit just to kind of talk about how when we're concepting hubs, we generally have like multiple tiers of what services go into what hubs based off of kind of their expected use and whatnot. So not every hub is going to get everything in it. Not every
Yeah,
hub is going to get full suite of craft services or trainers or a bank or an auction hall because that's not the purpose of those spaces. Like you look at Kijan, for example. There's a bunch of hubs dotted around Kijan, and most of them don't have the full suite of every single town
yeah,
service in them. Like
yeah.
the farm hub might have, some farm fields and a workbench because it's flavorful for that. But that was only there because it's flavorful for it, not because we wanted to make sure that access to those services was provided there.
Yeah, and
And that's for every hub, every town services. We kind of stop and think like, does this belong here flavorfully?
is it
And
necessary? Does it? Yeah,
if
does
it
it fit?
does, great. But if it doesn't, we don't need it.
And class trainers. I mean, I think everyone's aware that we haven't really used class trainers in probably a decade now. It's been quite a while since we've really needed the class trainer for anything other than the initial onboarding. The whole reason to go there and get your new skills is gone. We haven't had that for a very long time. So their necessity is just it's not there anymore. There's no real reason for them. Um, so I don't necessarily think there's any plan really for them at this point. Um, there was a question about doing something about pathing, like in the map. Can we show you where to walk? No. So that's kind of a it would. So there's a couple of things.
I have
I know
opinions.
that it's become something that other games do, right? It is something that other games do, but it's also it takes away a lot of the exploration aspect of an MMO. If we show you exactly where you should go at any given time, and yeah, I'm showing my age and the long toothedness of my existence in the industry, but it's also I think it's a really important part of the Middle Earth experience and the Lotro experience is, the not all who wander are lost kind of thing, right? It's the finding your way is not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily bad. Sometimes, like if you're in a rush, yeah, it sucks, but yeah, I don't one our engine really can't handle that kind of a thing right now, and it's not a high priority for us, and really like the exploration aspect of it, I think is more important than giving you a direct line and a dotted line as to how to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, I think too. You can there is if you look at quests in Lotro that were created before we introduced um, the quest tool, the quest marker
Tracker.
system, yeah, the quest tracker, and quests after. A lot of the quests before often have some pretty rich detail about where
Hmm.
you need to go, how to get there, and whatnot. And then after the introduction of Quest Tracker, those requirements for direction, I don't want to say are less flavorful, but
It's made us lazy.
are
You can
are
say it.
less
It's made us more
grounded, or
lazy.
they're less
Yeah.
grounded in the landscape of the world.
And
You're not often looking for landmarks to be called out in the quest system, in the quest text, so that you can like turn a direction, be like, oh, hey, that hill over there is what was mentioned in the quest, and that's a I feel like a byproduct of us providing tools to help support gameplay through a space for people that either need it or they just want an easier time getting through the world. And so I feel like the quest tracker is probably the better um, compromise than full
it's the
on like
compromise solution. That's the good way to put it. It's the compromise
it,
solution.
than full on like follow the dotted line. I could see a world where maybe we extend that system a little bit and allow you to have like little carrots on your radar ring pointing you towards quest objectives, because I feel
Trying to
like
do that.
um,
I
like
mean, kind
actually
of. Not as direct as you're
right,
suggesting, but we kind of do that.
which and some quests that would not be great for at
Mhm.
all anyways, like the quests that are like, you know
It's
kill X
kill
number of
orcs in this.
wolves.
Yeah, like
Yeah, and it's
that's
like
not so good.
every area of the world has those. So now
Yeah,
your radar ring is like freaking out. But that could be a potential option for quest designers to opt in for, like allow radar tracking. Kind of a feature. But um, but yeah, I agree with Alan. I feel like and this is my completely my bias because of what I do, but I want people in the world looking at the world, paying attention to the world, and features like the automatically generated point to point path stuff removes that attention from the world, because all you have to do is follow the line.
yeah. I also think that part of, and I don't want to say that like it made us lazy because it did. What it did, it allowed us to cut some of those corners. And to be fair, like at this point in development and at this point in with the resources we have, it does it's more beneficial for us to have the quest tracker than not because we still try to put in some some good direction, but it's some generalized direction. I think is the right way to say it. But as Matt was pointing out, like we used to say things like I'm just trying to remember the comb is a great example, right? The hanging tree is the tree with the X on it, and then you go out there and you find the trees that have been cut down, but you find one that has an X on it. Like that's all bespoke, right? That's something that was very unique and something that we were able to create at the time because we had a much larger team from an art and world and content standpoint. So we had the ability to do one-offs like that. It gets
And
more
QA
difficult over
standpoint
time.
too.
Yeah, I think QA, yeah, it's true. Like
um,
having more people, more time, more resources, whatever you want to call it, gives you a little bit more of that capacity. And you know, while it can be frustrating if you get lost inside of the world, we do hope that maybe you stumble upon something that has been craftily hidden away in a nook or cranny that you didn't expect to find. Right? Uh, I know Matt is still fond of hiding Easter eggs in every
I
single zone that he builds.
I had my favorite Easter egg in Kingdom Sarad. I haven't seen many people talking about it, but
See, there you go.
um, and talking about the quest directions too, like just I had a nugget of nostalgia remembering writing quests for Asheron's Call, and how like we refused to put coordinates in our quest direct in any of our
Yep.
quest directions. I think we softened on that towards the end of my tenure on there, but like how specific a lot of those quest directions were, just to get to like a dungeon entrance,
Yeah.
5 clicks away from a hub.
I think the most I ever did with that might have been the Noir quest, where I had to be
Hmm.
very, very, very descriptive and prescriptive of where players needed to go for certain things.
And all without a quest log.
All without a quest log, and oh yeah, that's still one of my favorite quests that I've made over the years.
So we are at 4 o'clock. So we should wrap this up. Is there any other nuggets or information that you want to talk about to wrap up this stream?
Only that you should expect to see the letter to the players soon, and that is the trademarked version of soon.
With the big TM right next to it.
The big
Uh,
trademark sign next to it. Yeah,
and I think as far as future streams, I think we're hoping to get back to our regularly scheduled.
we
What was
are.
it? It was first Thursday of the month.
First Thursday of every month, which means that this will be hopefully 3 weeks from tomorrow, right?
Time will fly.
It
Um,
does.
and yeah,
We'll
we
have
still
more to
have this.
talk about then too, because people will at least know what's going to
Yeah.
be in the next real update. So
And my next casual stroll will be the Wednesday following that. Uh, we're still figuring out schedule wise what makes sense for me to preview next. There are a few things, few ideas floating around. I think there's one of three to pick from for the next one. It'll all depend on when we're planning on releasing information about things.
yep.
So,
And there was a quick question in here from High Rock on any date on the instances. I'm not going to go out and say exactly when, but we have one more round of Boror that we're trying to get done before we actually push them out to live. We're finding enough things that we want to fix that we need at least another week, I'd say.
alrighty. Well, I think that'll wrap it up then. Thank you everyone for hanging out. Nighttime in our backdrop is a perfect time to end this, I think. So, thank you
Thank
all.
you all very much.
We'll see you in a few weeks.